Welcome to the video. So before the video starts, I have a question for you. Do you know why the world is warming up? You don't know? Well, I'm gonna tell you about it. So, let's get straight to it. Hello and welcome back to the video. So, as I told you before, the world is actually getting hotter and hotter every day. It's getting hotter, and because of that, every single day is becoming hotter than the previous day. And there's a lot more natural disasters happening in the world right now. And the cause of this phenomenon is namely one, which is global warming. So, what is global warming? So, global warming is a phenomenon where the average temperature of the earth is increasing because of the greenhouse effect and the greenhouse gases. So, what is the greenhouse effect and what are the greenhouse gases? So basically, the greenhouse effect is a phenomenon where some of the sun's heat will be captured by the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and will be stored, so the earth will be a sustainable and habitable place for living beings, such as humans and animals. On the other hand, the greenhouse gases are basically the gases that is playing the role of capturing the heat from the sun. Some example of the greenhouse gases are H2O and CO2. So, how does the greenhouse gases work? So if you're asking me how does the greenhouse gases work, so that means we're stepping into the science of chemistry. And if you're asking me what is the correlation between chemistry and global warming, well, I'll give you three reasons. First reason is because chemistry has a lot of benefits. Chemistry has been beneficial to sectors like archaeology, pharmacy, and farming. And because of that, I think chemistry will and can play a role to solving global warming. The second reason is because chemistry is a gift from God, and because chemistry is a gift from God, we need to use it wisely and find a way to use chemistry to try and solve global warming. Because protecting the earth is also one of the tasks that God has given us humans to do. The third and main reason is because, well, chemistry deals with this kind of things. Because chemistry is the branch of science that deals with identification of the substance of which matter is composed. It's basically like molecules and atoms and particles. That's what chemistry is dealing. So let's get straight back to the catch. How does greenhouse gases work? Well, because we're talking about global warming right now, and the main reason of global warming right now in this decade is because of the CO2 emissions. So I will be talking about how CO2 gases work and how do they capture heat from the sun. Okay, so as we all know, CO2 captures heat from the sun, which is infrared heat. So, but how does it work? So, the way that CO2 catches heat from the sun is by vibrating. There are actually 10 vibrations, but the only effective ones are 3. So the 3 is bending vibration, symmetrical vibration, and asymmetrical vibration. But the only vibration that matters between these 3 is actually the the asymmetrical vibration, or you can call it anti-symmetrical vibration. The reason it's the only one that matters is because it can create a dipole moment. So, how does CO2 capture heat by vibrating? As CO2 captures heat when the heat is passing by the CO2 because the infrared heat comes in a photon form, a wavelength to be called also. It has a negative and a positive charge. When it goes down, it has a negative charge. If it goes up, it has a positive charge. CO2 molecules also have a negative and positive charge, and to create a dipole moment or separation of charges between the two, the wavelength or the photon needs to pass the CO2 molecules with the same equal energy. If it didn't match, well, the photon, the infrared, and the CO2 molecule will just pass by each other, and the CO2 molecule will not store and capture the heat. Oh yeah, and there's also one thing too. So if the wavelength is actually bigger than a molecule, so when the wavelength passes by the molecule, because it is bigger, there will be a magnetic field. So as we all know, the bulk reason of global warming and the reason why it's happening is because of CO2, carbon dioxide, and we all know that's because of the carbon dioxide emission that has been increasing every year from the usual years in the past decades. And because of that, what is the reason CO2 has been increasing in emissions? Well, the main reason is because the industrial demand that we need. We need to create energy so that we can have electricity at our homes. We also use fossil fuel for a lot of stuff like motorized vehicles and so on. Farming and cattle also makes a lot of it, and we also deforest a lot so that we can make land for new houses or new cattle and new farms. But I think the bulk reason is because of the industrial demand and because we need energy and electricity to live, and well, that's how the economy works, and without it the economy is doomed. So I think that's the main reason why CO2 emissions have been increasing every year. So as a follower of Christ, I think global warming is a big problem because first of all, the earth is our home, and second of all is because when humans were created, God has given a task for us to protect the earth, and so because of that, we need to protect the earth. From the perspective of the government, I think global warming is a big problem. Global warming is basically a ticking time bomb because global warming can cause a lot of fatal issues for the government. For example, is sea level rising or extinction for some species. This will cause a big problem for the government, and the government also has to balance the economy while still being eco friendly. How does the public think of global warming? Well, I think the public has three sides. There are people who know and care about global warming. They try their best to help people and to help the government to solve this issue. There are also those who don't really care about global warming and just live on their lives. And there are actually those who doesn't believe that global warming actually exists. And because of that, I think we need to push more of our efforts to making people realize the dangers and issues of global warming. So how do we solve global warming? So I think the way to solve global warming is to invest in alternative energy sources like solar, wind, air, and not use energy that is coming from fossil fuel or using fossil fuel to make energy. And we should also invest in technologies and solutions that is more eco-friendly. For example, in cattling, where they cattle cows, their cows actually make a lot of methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas and is more potent and can store and capture more heat than carbon dioxide. So I think we need to find more eco-friendly solutions and technologies.